FAA staffing and policies have been abysmally fucking low for years. Even the Air Traffic Controllers Union is saying that staffing levels have been at barely half of what they should be.
I'm Stephanie Keith.
And I am Tara Manjakovic, and we are unapologetically outspoken. Hey, everybody. Happy Friday. Obviously, one of the biggest and most tragic news stories since our last episode is the aviation accident that occurred on Wednesday night. I'm sure everybody has heard about this. It's all over the news. But just a brief summary, it was an Army Black Hawk helicopter that was apparently conducting its annual proficiency training flight, and it crashed into an American Airlines flight that was carrying 60 passengers and 4 crew members. And I guess 14 of those passengers were coming back from a U.S. figure skating championship in Wichita, Kansas. And Stephanie, unless you've heard differently, as far as I'm aware, there are no survivors from either the plane or the helicopter.
That's what I'm hearing, but I have to throw in the first conspiracy that's going on with this. People on TikTok were saying that the night that it happened, like when they went to bed, they were saying there were 4 people that they were bringing to the hospital. But then the next day, they were saying there's no survivors and there was no mention of those 4 people. And they were pulling up news clips, like showing, see, they said 4 people. Now they're saying nothing. What happened to those people? So that was kind of strange. But yeah, now I think Trump announced it as well, that there were no survivors.
Yeah, and I guess they're still pulling bodies from the river. So the 2 aircraft collided over the Potomac River at like around 9 o'clock. And the strange thing is it was like the American Airlines passenger flight had just received clearance to approach the runway at Ronald Reagan National Airport in Virginia. And like the circumstances surrounding this are really crazy, but this is the deadliest US air crash in over 20 years, and the details are still coming out.
Mhm.
So, from what I read and saw initially, the air traffic controller asked the Black Hawk if it saw the plane, and then like this was 30 seconds before the crash happened, and there was reportedly no response from anyone in the Black Hawk.
Yes. So I actually listened to that audio. But before I talk about that, this morning I heard another update that I guess just came out where the FAA is saying that the plane was told to switch runways. And so it
Mhm.
had to like slightly adjust its path. And then seconds after was when the crash happened. So, of course, on TikTok, they're posting the audios, the visual, like everything. So I listened to the recording. I was going to play it, but it's so muffled. I don't think you'll be able to understand what they're saying. I could barely hear it. But air traffic control says Pat 25, which is the helicopter. Do you see the CRJ, which is the plane? And like you said, I didn't hear any response. Then the air traffic says Pat 25 pass behind the CRJ. Still no response. And this thing is going directly towards the plane, which is lit up very brightly, and hits it just seconds later. So what surprised me listening to the audio is how there was no urgency whatsoever in the controller's voice when warning the helicopter of the plane. And I mean, I understand that they're trained to remain calm, but like I could barely make out what he was saying. It was like fly behind the CRJ, Pat 25. You see that? Just very like you could barely hear it. And so that to me was kind of odd. But then the other thing is just watching the video. I'm like, I just don't understand how the helicopter pilot wouldn't see this big ass lit up plane that they're flying directly towards.
Right. You can see how the plane wouldn't see the helicopter maybe, but
Yes,
not the other way around.
not the other way around. And uh, it just got me thinking how we've done a couple episodes now about the military creating Blackhawks that are controlled by AI and run on autopilot with no like human pilot in the craft. And I'm not saying that's what happened. I mean, they're saying that there were three pilots, but I just think the fact that there was no response from anyone on the Black Hawk, and I would think, with three human beings in the helicopter, at least one of them would spot it. I mean, the plane has all these lights and it's right there, and you're near a high traffic airport. It just, something's not adding up there.
Right. Yeah, it's really weird. And the new transportation secretary, Sean Duffy, it's so weird because he was literally sworn in like hours before the crash. And he's saying like there was no communication breakdown. He said the Black Hawk knew the plane was there. So if that's the case, that makes this even more bizarre, right? And
Yeah.
so obviously everyone's weighing in on trying to figure out how this crash happened. And I just kind of went down the rabbit hole of listening to speculation from commercial pilots and military pilots and aviation specialists. And one of the things I listened to was it was actually the father of one of the American Airlines plane pilots, one of the guys that died. And it was so sad because this guy, the father, had been an Army helicopter pilot for 20 years. And I guess he flew in and out of the Pentagon regularly in the 90s. And he was seeing both sides of the story because he's like, look, if you're wearing night vision goggles and you're flying over the Potomac at night, you're not, it would be hard to see the plane. Which again, I still don't see how you can't see a plane with all those fucking lights. But he's saying this from the perspective of a military pilot. Um, and I just think, wow, that's really interesting to have that perspective when your son was just killed piloting that airplane.
Yes, how awful. And I mean, a
Mhm.
tragedy either way, but then those figure skaters were kids. They were
Yes.
young. I mean, this whole thing is just, it's horrible. And I did hear a lot of people on TikTok that were in the military were saying the same thing about the night vision goggles. Like, you try putting on night vision goggles and riding this thing at night, you can't see very good. But here's my question. If you can't see an object as big as a plane with bright lights, then why are they flying at night in a high traffic airspace? I mean, this place is known to be heavily congested. And, I'm also thinking, in my car, just my average car, if I come anywhere even close to like a garbage can, the sensors go off, my seat vibrates, autopilot kicks on. It's like a whole production. And I'm just like, wouldn't the military have a more sophisticated sensor system than a Chevy Tahoe? You know what I mean? It's just, that seems odd to me. And if it doesn't, then again, why are they flying it in an airspace with all of this traffic at night if there aren't proper sensors and everything? So I don't know. I think that's very odd. But then on top of all of that, you have the New York Times that's reporting that the internal FAA investigation report is showing that staffing wasn't normal at Reagan Regional Airport when this occurred. So the controller for the helicopter was also the controller for the planes, which I guess is very unusual. They usually have a controller for the helicopters, a controller for the planes. This guy was doing it for both of them. So that's odd. Why was that happening?
Yeah. See, this is one of the things that, okay, the left is blaming Trump, right? Like I don't know if you've
Of
been seeing this,
course.
but they're blaming Trump for this crash. They're saying it's because, he did this federal hiring freeze and that includes a freeze on hiring air traffic controllers. And Trump got rid of the Aviation Security Advisory Committee, and when Trump took office, the FAA chief resigned, and that was facilitated by Elon Musk. And now there's no one in charge of the FAA, and it's all Trump's fault. And on top of that, people going to work that work for the FAA and the air traffic controllers, everyone, is their mind isn't on their game because they're all worried about what Trump's going to do. And so basically blaming Trump, okay? Now, I will concede that Trump did come in and shake shit up, right? And his plans, he is making massive changes. And yes, he did the hiring freeze. He got rid of the advisory committee, and there is currently no FAA chief. But to blame Trump or his administration for this tragedy, to me, it's bullshit. Because yes, Trump ran his mouth. He said the incident looked preventable. He blamed DEI. So it's like a blame game, right? But let's take a look at the facts. Trump has been in office for like less than 2 weeks when this happened, okay? FAA staffing and policies have been abysmally fucking low for years. Even the Air Traffic Controllers Union is saying that staffing levels have been at barely half of what they should be. And I want to play this clip from Fox News.
I already made note of this, but I'm raising it again because they're already overstretched in the tower, and now they're doing double duty. Scott, take a swing at that one.
That's a hard miss, Laura.
Sorry, Michael. Sorry, Scott. Michael for that one. Michael, go ahead.
No worries. Hi, Laura. This is a preventable disaster. The system has been under attack due to DEI and the FAA bowing to wokeness since 2010, since the Obama administration. The lack of staffing is directly attributable to the Obama administration terminating the lists of eligible, well-trained air traffic control statements in 36 universities across the country in 2013 because they were too white. The FAA also at the same time implemented an immunity program. So you think you're seeing legitimate statistics, you're not. In the old days, before 2010, the immunity program, if an air traffic controller got two airplanes too close, too many times, they would be decertified and retrained. Now, they're not. All they have to do within 48 hours of being noticed or being investigated for a potential separation error, they're called operational errors in the FAA, the controller just simply has to avail themselves of this program that gives them immunity. And when I say immunity, I mean immunity. The FAA cannot retrain these people. If somebody has a repetitive instance of malfeasance or lack of competency, the FAA, because of this immunity program, cannot rectify the situation. They have to basically allow the person to remain in the same position. It's very, very difficult for the FAA to retrain a controller, and it's attributed to, quite frankly, the union and the FAA working together to basically use this program to gerrymander the statistics of near-miss collisions. You mentioned that.
Again.
Okay, and that's coming from a former air traffic controller.
This is unbelievable. I mean, I am absolutely shocked to hear that. I can't even imagine what the families are thinking of the people who lost their lives. I mean, this is crazy. And this is exactly what Trump has been talking about. We're done with that. We're switching to merit-based. You do the job because you're the best for the job, not for any other reason. And we just got to get used to this because I was getting pissed at first. Like, of course, they're blaming Trump. We just got to get used to it because for the next 4 years, anything bad that happens, they're going to blame it on Trump and his administration. Anything good that happens, they're going to say, oh, the Biden administration set that up. So when the economy comes back and things are doing great and inflation is down, they're going to say, oh, that's because Biden put all these things in place. It's just what we have to realize. And I don't even want to address it because it's absurd. And that clip pissed me off. It's crazy.
I know. And it's like there is a lot to be said for the focus on woke DEI policies taking precedence over training. And that's clearly what's been happening, not just with the FAA, but throughout our entire fucking government. And so,
I mean, we're talking about planes flying in the sky. Like if there is one industry where you have to really focus on safety and doing the job right, it's that. I mean, we're not talking about, driving a garbage truck or something where, I mean, we're talking about flying people, human beings in the air. Like this is just absurd.
Yeah, it's crazy. But I do want to kind of switch gears a little bit and go to the conspiracy side of this whole thing because I know there's a lot of them, but so I there's okay. Tell me what you're seeing on TikTok because I know that's like your conspiracy hub. And there's all this speculation that the Black Hawk helicopter wasn't conducting a training flight like the Army said, and that there's more to the story. And I only read this in the Daily Mail last night. And you mentioned earlier that the Black Hawk, like their call sign was PAT 25. And this stands for Priority Air Transport. Transport. So people are saying that this is a designation that's usually reserved for when the Army is conducting a VIP mission, like when they have officials on board. And again, the Army is claiming no officials were on board the aircraft. It was only those three soldiers on the training mission. So then the article called attention to a TikTok user named Jacques Serra, who claims to be an active duty Army person, and posted that there's no way this was an accident. And of course, other military users said the same. So you got to tell me what you are seeing on TikTok.
I think the overall consensus is, yeah, this was not an accident. With that being said, there are some people saying, well, I mean, it could be. So first of all, it definitely was a PAT 25 because in the audio, that's what they're calling this helicopter. But some people on TikTok that are supposedly in the military are saying just because they're calling it that doesn't mean at that moment they were actually carrying important cargo. It just means that helicopter is designed as a PAT. I have a hard time believing that, I mean, this is very close to the Pentagon, Capitol Hill, CIA headquarters. We know it's been a huge week on Capitol Hill. There's a lot of important people in town. I'm sure that they're transporting these people on a regular basis, but we don't know for sure. Like, yeah, okay, maybe it was a training mission. Regardless of why the helicopter was there, everyone does seem to be agreeing that something like this should never happen with today's technology. And I mean, this is coming from everyone from people who flow, who have flown helicopters, as well as pilots for planes. And, I just want to point out, look at all the shit we've seen with planes over the past couple of years. I mean, it's odd. There's been a lot of incidents. And I know this is a big one we haven't seen in like 20 years, but there's been a lot of stuff going on in aviation over the past couple of years. We've had Boeing whistleblowers coming forward saying there's major safety concerns, and then they turn up dead. And I don't even think this was a Boeing plane. I'm not sure. But my whole point with that is I think that there are bigger safety concerns than we realize that need to be addressed. And as you were saying, like with the way the airlines have cut costs left and right, they've cut staff, they've fired great pilots for not getting the COVID vaccine and all other, nonsense DEI shit. I think we need to realize that all of that that's taken place over the last 4 years has an impact on safety and quality. And this is across every industry, but especially airlines, where it absolutely should be merit-based. And then the other thing I think is weird is you've got the news reports that are saying there were 3 soldiers on board the helicopter. But then they're saying the names are anonymous. But then you have Governor Brian Kemp that went on X and posted that 2 of the people were Ryan O'Hara and Sam Lilly, who are from Georgia. So, but then who was the third person? Was it a soldier? Was it a VIP? And why is the news still like refusing to name these people? I think that's kind of strange.
The only thing that I did see this morning was the other person in the Black Hawk reportedly was a female pilot with over 500 hours of flying experience, but the name has not been released.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess we'll see. Maybe they're waiting, to notify the families and all of that, which I understand. But, we're seeing everyone that was on the plane, their photos, everything about them. So I don't know. I thought that was odd. And I am sorry, but can you hear my son in the background?
No, not at all.
Not at all. I don't know how you don't hear this. It's very distracting for me. So I'm glad you don't hear it. That's what happens when I'm podcasting from home. So I want to play a clip because I heard this pilot and aviation commentator on the Morning Wire. And when I heard this, this was like the first thing I heard about the whole incident, and it just sent alarm bells off in my head. So let me play that real quick.
Aviation correspondent Pete Montine, himself a private pilot and instructor.
I'm stumbling over my words here because this is just so staggering that there is a mid-air collision involving a commercial airliner. Commercial flights are equipped for ages with a system called TCAS, Traffic Collision Avoidance System. It tells the pilots in the cockpit how to avoid other airplanes nearby. It tells the pilots there's traffic ahead of you, climb now, descend now. This would be an incredible lining up of the holes in the Swiss cheese, which is the saying in aviation, the gaps in the safety chain in aviation that this happened. And now investigators have an incredible amount of work cut out for them to figure out how a commercial airliner in the United States in 2025, when the pilots are incredibly trained, the technology is incredibly sharp, collided with what is apparently a military or government helicopter. Nobody else uses the Black Hawk. It is really something else. I'm just stunned.
CNN's aviation course.
So after hearing that, I'm like, this does not sound like an accident. You know,
I just
no
don't see
way.
how it can be. Like,
Yeah, there's just no way. I mean, the technology that we have in 2025, and especially you would think military equipment, it seems very odd.
but wasn't there a Black Hawk crash? Like, it was a few months ago, maybe 6 months ago. Like two Blackhawks crashed into each other
Yes,
on a training
yes.
exercise.
You know, now that you say that, yeah, I do remember that. And I feel like helicopters, it's very normal. I don't want to say normal, but it happens a lot to have crashes. Because remember when Kobe Bryant, his helicopter
Right.
crashed, and then that's when they were saying like, yeah, helicopters crash all the time. Um, so it's just weird to me, again, that this is at night in a high traffic airspace
Yeah.
if
And
it's not
crashing into
truly safe.
a plane is a whole other level.
Right. And you know, and this is near Washington, D.C., which is alarming. Like this should be the most secure area in the country. You know what I mean? And the other thing too is these pilots and veterans and military personnel that are commenting on these videos, they're talking about helicopters and how agile they are. And I mean, if there's, you know, when the call came in, hey, watch out for the CRJ, go left, they can move very quickly out of the way. They can drop, they can go up very fast. And so they're saying like that doesn't make sense. It's not like they wouldn't have had time to adjust course or change their elevation. So again, like the whole thing is just odd. Um, and then I've got to bring the drones into it because I think that with this happening, we need to talk about when you have all of these drones or whatever you want to call them in the air in densely populated areas near major airports, maybe we need to stop gaslighting everybody and take this more seriously. You know, I mean, how I'm shocked there hasn't been an incident prior with all this stuff that people are reporting in the air, you know,
Right.
every single night. So maybe they'll look into that a little bit more. And if there's drones out there just for research or for hobby, maybe they'll stop at this point. I mean, I think enough is enough. We don't need anything else getting in the way of safety.
Yeah. So I guess we'll see what comes up over the weekend. Like, I know they're well underway with their investigation, so hopefully we'll have some better answers by Monday. But the other big thing that has been going on the last couple of days the confirmation hearings. So RFK Jr., Tulsi Gabbard, and Kash Patel between yesterday and the day before, those were ongoing. And Stephanie, I don't know about you, but from what I was watching, they were fucking brutal.
They were, and I have a ton of clips. I'm going to go ahead and pause for a moment and switch rooms though, because my son brought all his dinosaurs in and it's going to get really loud. So give me just a sec. Okay, so the only hearing I've been watching really closely is the RFK one because it is a freaking spectacular theater performance. So I want to start by playing his part of his opening statement because I think that anyone that disagrees with this needs their head examined. So take a listen.
Said, when I launched my campaign, it was about uniting Americans, Democrats and Republicans. There's no issue that should unite us more than this chronic health epidemic. There's no such thing as Republican children or Democratic children. These are our kids. 66% of them are damaged. I know what a healthy kid looks like because I had so many of them in my family. I didn't know anybody with a food allergy growing up, peanut allergy. Why do 5 of my kids have allergies? Why are we seeing these explosions in diabetes, rheumatoid arthritis, neurological diseases, depression, all of these things that are related to toxins in the environment? Why can't we just agree with each other to put differences about so many issues, intractable issues aside and say, we're going to end this? I don't think anybody is going to be able to do this like I have because of my peculiar experience, because I've litigated against these agencies. When you litigate against them, you get a PhD in corporate capture and how to unravel it. And I've written 6 books about these agencies. I know a lot about them and I know how to fix it. And there's nobody who will fix it the way that I do because I'm not scared of vested interests. I don't care. I'm not here because I want a position or a job. I have a very good life and a happy family. This is something I don't need. I want to do this because we're going to fix it. And the other thing is we are attracting now a caliber of people to HHS like never before in history. And they're entrepreneurs, they're disruptors, they're innovators of immense talent that are walking away, many of them from growing concerns. They're not coming there for position. They're coming there because they want to save our country. And they're from across the political spectrum. And all these Democrats are opposed to me for partisan issues. They used to be my friends, agreed with me on all the environmental issues that I've been working on for my whole career. Now they're against me because anything that President Trump does, any decision he makes, has to be lampooned, derided, discredited, marginalized, vilified. I want for
So
I love him.
yes. I mean, that's what I mean. Like how can anyone disagree? And he's saying no one did until he partnered with Trump, you know? And I mean, you have people on the left that are like making fun of his speech disability and stuff. And it's like they're just ruthless. It's absolutely
Yeah.
ridiculous. And I want to point out this would be the first time in history that the HHS secretary is from a different party than the president. And it's so funny because you have all these Democrats and they want to preach unity. But then when Trump actually takes action to unite and bring in people from the left, like RFK, like Tulsi Gabbard, like Elon Musk, the Democrats can't stand it. And they make personal attacks against these people. It's just, it's like unfreaking real. You would think they'd be jumping up and down that there's a Democrat, you know, in the administration. So, anyhow, Elizabeth Warren, this, if you want some good theatrical performance, go and watch this whole line of questioning. Her, it's just, it's so stupid. This woman, like, I can't believe she's still in office. But anyhow, her first question to RFK was if he would accept money from Big Pharma.
God.
It was so funny because he like the shock on his face, and he's like, wait, you mean you? oh, me? Like, and the crowd was so awesome is the whole crowd was laughing. Like he is surrounded by the best group of people because they were like very vocal during this whole hearing and everyone starts laughing at her and she even kind of started laughing and looked a little embarrassed. But he followed up with, no, I don't think pharmaceutical companies want to give me money. You know, like obviously they don't like him because he's going after big pharma. And so it was just a ridiculous question. But it's very interesting because Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders, I think they went after RFK the hardest in their questioning. And guess what? They also happen to be in the top 20 members who received money from pharma and healthcare. In fact, they were number one and number two in terms of how much money they got. And let's be honest, that's the real reason they don't want RFK. They're getting
Right.
paid by big pharma lobbyists to make sure he doesn't get in. And, you know, again, it made for a great show because RFK had no problem calling them out. And that's why I just love this guy. So I'm going to play two clips back to back of his interaction with Elizabeth Warren and then Bernie Sanders and how he's just not taking their bullshit.
Those future lawsuits and pending lawsuits while you are Secretary of HHS. And I'm asking you to commit right now that you will not take a financial stake in every one of those lawsuits so that what you do as Secretary will also benefit you financially down the line.
I'll comply with all the ethical guidelines.
That's not the question. You and I, you have said
You're asking
repeatedly-
me, Senator, you're asking me not to sue vaccine pharmaceutical companies. Yeah, you are. That's exactly what you're doing.
Well, look, it's
She's like flipping out. No, I'm not. And he's like, yeah, you're asking me not to sue pharmaceutical companies. Like, not going to happen. Okay, here's the one of him with Bernie Sanders. This is awesome.
Guaranteed, do what every other major country does. That's a simple question.
And by the way, Bernie, the problem of corruption is not just in the federal agencies, it's in Congress too. Almost all the members of this panel are accepting, including yourself, are accepting millions of dollars from the pharmaceutical industry.
Oh, no,
And
no.
protecting their interests.
No. I thought that would come. No. I ran for president like you. I got millions and millions of contributions. They did not come from the executives, not one nickel of PAC money from the pharmaceutical industry. They came from workers.
In 2020, you were the single largest
Because I had
pharmaceutical money.
from workers all over this country. Workers.
You were the single,
not a nickel from corporate tax.
you were the single largest acceptor of pharmaceutical dollars.
No, from workers in the industry.
1.5 million.
Yeah, out of 200 million. All right.
You say,
It's only 45 million.
yeah, like I didn't accept any money. And RFK's like laughing. He's like, you were the number one recipient of money. And I don't know if you could hear, but the audience was literally cheering. They were like, woo, yeah. Like they are just, I mean, it was a sight to see. And by the way, I have a new favorite quote from RFK. He said, quote, the last thing standing between a child and an industry full of corruption is a mother. I love this man. I freaking love this man. Like, I can get behind everything he's saying. And as a mom, I can't imagine not wanting the one and only person in our lifetime that's not only willing, but also able to go up against big pharma and big food to make the next generation safer and healthier. But the amount of women and moms that I'm seeing on Instagram who have so much hate for him because they have Trump derangement syndrome, it's just wild to me. It's like you're willing to take the one guy that's willing to make things healthier for your kids and go against him because of Trump?
Right. How can you argue against your children's better health? Like it makes no fucking sense.
Yeah, it's wild. And one of my favorite influencers, DC Drano, he posted something that I was just like, yes, this is what I've been saying. He says, 2025 is wild. Republicans are fighting for a Kennedy Democrat. Democrats are fighting to stop him. Republicans want safe food and vaccine. Democrats are fighting to stop them. What the hell happened to the parties? And it's so true. It's like I feel like the parties have flipped because everything that the Democrats are supposed to stand for, they're going against all because they don't like Trump. It's crazy.
Yep.
All right. So you know how Michelle Shanahan, she was RFK's running mate when he was Nicole. Yeah.
Nicole.
Oh my gosh, you want to know why I called her Michelle?
Why?
I had a neighbor that was named Michelle Shanahan growing up. I even wrote it down in my notes, Michelle Shanahan. Oh my God, Nicole Shanahan. Thank you. I am liking this woman more and more. Okay, she just says whatever the fuck she wants, and she can because she's a billionaire and she doesn't give a shit. So this is what she posts on social media. Listen to this.
2020, I cut large checks to Chuck Schumer to help Democrats flip 2 Senate seats in Georgia from red to blue. The 2 candidates I helped elect, Senator Raphael Warnock and Senator John Ossoff. Please know I will be watching your votes very closely. I will make it my personal mission that you lose your seats in the Senate if you vote against the future health of America's children. And more than that, I also want to say to Senators Mitch McConnell, Lindsey Graham, Lisa Murkowski, Susan Collins, Bill Cassidy, Tom Tillis, James Lankford, Cory Booker, John Fetterman, Bernie Sanders, and Catherine Cortez Masto, this is a bipartisan message, and it comes directly from me. While Bobby may be willing to play nice, I won't. If you vote against him, I will personally fund challengers to primary you in your next election, and I will enlist hundreds of thousands to join me. Big Pharma and Big Ag have exploited us for far too long. It ends now. You're either on the side of transparency and accountability, or you are standing in the way. The choice is yours. Please choose wisely. 2020, I cut large checks.
I love her.
Awesome. Yeah.
What a badass.
Absolutely awesome.
Yeah, I'll make sure. I will make it my personal mission to make sure you're not voted in. Like, hell yeah.
And that's the thing is like, I love the outspokenness of people who are standing up for what's right, who don't give a fuck because they don't need money from anybody. They're not trying to get money from lobbyists. They are just standing for the truth and they can and not give a shit about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's pretty amazing.
Good for her.
Yeah. I want to kind of switch gears to Kash Patel's hearing. Oh, okay. It was hard to watch, right? There were funny parts, but it was so combative. And he was getting grilled by Adam Schiff. And I fucking hate Adam Schiff. And he was grilling him on January 6th. And this appearance that Kash Patel made on Steve Bannon's podcast and a song that was recorded by the January 6th inmates that like Kash Patel promoted and helped the song like get to the top of the charts. And it was just, to me, this was such a stupid thing to focus on, but I want to play this clip from Adam Schiff.
Considered for director of the FBI. And here you did no diligence to find out whether people you were associating with now the President of the United States in song were convicted of attacking police officers. Is that who we want running the FBI? I want you to turn around. There are Capitol Police officers behind you. They're guarding us. Take a look at them right now. Turn around.
I'm looking at you. You're talking to me.
No, look at them. I want you to look at them if you can, if you have the courage to look them in the eye, Mr. Patel, and tell them you're proud of what you did. Tell them you're proud that you raised money off of people that assaulted their colleagues, that pepper sprayed them, that beat them with poles. Tell them you're proud of what you did, Mr. Patel. They're right there. They're guarding you today. Tell them how proud you are.
That's an abject lie, and you know it. I've never, ever accepted violence against law enforcement. I've worked with these men and women, as you know, my entire life. And I did not make a single dime out of it.
Well, let me.
How about you ask them if I have their backs, and let's see about that.
Let me ask you this, Mr. Patel. Let me ask you this. If an FBI director promoted a song of people who sprayed pepper spray in the face of an FBI agent, would you say they were fit to be director?
Mr.
Yes
Schiff,
or no? Would they be fit to be director?
I am fit to be the director of the FBI.
I am fit to be the director of the FBI.
The restraint that he has. I was so
Yes.
wanting him to call out that piece of shit and saying, like, oh, well, then why were you pardoned? If you didn't do anything wrong on the January 6th committee, why did the president have to pardon you before you were convicted of any crimes? I mean, the balls of Schiff to still be going after this January 6th nonsense when there's a clear mandate from the American people that we've had enough. It's just, it angers me like nothing else.
Yeah, and I've got another clip I want to play because at one point he was being interviewed by Republican Senator Eric Schmidt. I guess it's not really an interview, but anyway. So Schmidt was playing the Would You Rather game with him. Okay, so listen to this clip.
That Senator Tillis has got the game of bingo. I'd like to play another game. Would you rather?
Let's have at it, sir.
Would you rather the FBI prosecute and persecute parents who voice legitimate concerns at school board meetings, or should it investigate domestic terrorists who commit school shootings and threaten the lives of American children?
Absolutely investigate and prioritize the safety of our children and any actual and real domestic terrorists, as I've prosecuted in my past in the Obama Justice Department.
Would you rather the FBI be weaponized by investigating presidential candidates, political opponents, spying on and wiretapping candidates' advisors, or should the FBI get back to its core mission and get politics out of the FBI?
There should be no politics in the FBI, and having been a victim of the weaponization of law enforcement against me, I know what that feels like, and if I'm confirmed, I will make sure no American feels that sleight of hand ever again.
Would you rather the FBI target traditional Catholics as extremists, or should the FBI focus on investigating actual threats posed to the American people by cartels pumping fentanyl into our communities through the southern border?
100,000 deaths due to fentanyl and drug overdoses in 1 year. I'd rather the FBI focus on that and save our children.
Would you rather the FBI ignore when thugs threaten to harm and plot against Supreme Court justices, or should the FBI actually investigate that and get to the bottom of it?
So glad you brought that up, Senator. This body passed a law to protect our justices of the peace, including the Supreme Court, and every single justice of the peace deserves that enforcement of that law so they can do their duty.
Would you rather the FBI pressure social media companies into censoring conservative viewpoints, or should it focus on what the FBI should get back to, which is investigating interstate crimes that threaten the well-being of Americans?
No censorship. Let's focus on investigating interstate crimes.
Would you rather the FBI raid the home of a former president and chief political rival, going through the First Lady's personal belongings, spreading out documents on the floor staged, or should it raid the homes of terrorists who seek to harm citizens?
Let's let our men and women in law enforcement kick down the doors of terrorists and narco traffickers and pedophiles and put those people in prison where they belong.
So,
Isn't that great?
Hell yeah. I freaking love Kash Patel. And Senator Eric Schmidt, hello. I never followed him before, but I'm going to be following now.
I know about him because Andy Frisella's had him on the podcast several times, and he is like apparently very good friends with him, so he talks about him a lot. So I've kind of been following him just because of that. So the other thing is Tulsi, right? So she was very well spoken, and I want to play this clip from the opening remarks from her hearing because I absolutely loved this.
The American people. Now, before I close, I want to warn the American people who are watching at home. You may hear lies and smears in this hearing that'll challenge my loyalty to and my love for our country. Those who oppose my nomination imply that I am loyal to something or someone other than God, my own conscience, and the Constitution of the United States, accusing me of being Trump's puppet, Putin's puppet, Assad's puppet, a guru's puppet, Modi's puppet, not recognizing the absurdity of simultaneously being the puppet of 5 different puppet masters. The same tactic was used against President Trump and failed. The American people elected President Trump with a decisive victory and mandate for change. The fact is, what truly unsettles my political opponents is I refuse to be their puppet.
I
Isn't that
love
cool?
her. She
Yeah.
is so well spoken. And I like that she's got that like really cool, calm demeanor, but she can use words to like freaking, I mean, that hits you hard, you know? I
Did,
would be scared to mess with her. Like she's a badass.
yeah, and she had this whole like Ice Queen vibe going on because she
Mm-hmm.
came in like the full white suit, and
Yep.
then with like the gray streak in her hair and the white suit, it was just like power mode, right?
Yep.
So the biggest issue she was questioned on was Snowden and whether or not he was a traitor, and she kept getting asked, "Is he a traitor? Is he a traitor?" And she was saying he broke the law. Like he broke the law, but she didn't use the word traitor. And then she was questioned a lot about her meetings with Assad. And it seems like she might have a hard time getting confirmed because she's going to need every single Republican vote. So I guess we'll see what happens.
Yeah, once again, it's like they they are going after the Democrats. You would think the Democrat Party would be like behind the few picks of people who have been Democrat their whole life, but they're not. And from everything I'm hearing, like their whole goal is to make sure that one of these people doesn't
Isn't
get
confirmed.
confirmed.
Yeah.
It's so ridiculous. And look at all the nonsense people that Republicans voted for, no problem for Biden.
Mhm.
So
I
these
was
people
going to
aren't
say,
Republicans. They're part of the uniparty.
yeah, I was going to say, I do not remember this much emphasis on the Senate confirmation hearings or, congressional confirmation hearings when Biden took office.
No,
I just
no,
don't remember this kind of attention on it at all.
right. No, because they don't want people that are going to come in and disrupt their system that they've built to enrich themselves.
Yeah.
And all these Republicans need to be voted out that are voting no.
Yeah, I agree completely. So again, we'll see what happens. But the other thing I do want to bring up is Trump's tariff plan on Canada and Mexico, the 25% tariffs on incoming goods from both of these countries. It is supposed to take effect starting tomorrow. And Trump basically said, yes, it's going to happen yesterday. So, in response, Canada is threatening to shut down electricity that is generated by Canada to power states in the Northeast, including New York. So, I'm just curious to see if these tariffs do go into effect tomorrow and what Canada is going to do about it. I haven't heard Mexico saying anything.
I don't think Trump's going to be bullied by Canada.
Right.
Okay. And this will just give him all the more reason to drill and get shit going here.
Yeah.
So yeah, bring it on, Canada. Like, fuck around and find out. That seems to be the theme here. But yes, I keep hearing him talk too about eliminating income tax. I mean, this isn't just like one thing he said on the campaign trail. He's been talking about it regularly. There are people in Congress on board. So I think this might actually happen as soon as he can get the tariffs going. And how amazing would that be?
Yeah, no kidding. So, okay, finally, it's Friday, right? And we haven't had a good bird flu update in a while. So,
Oh,
I
that's
have to do
right.
these. Yeah, I have to do these occasionally. And in case you guys are wondering, yes, the bird flu is still running rampant in the United States to the point where Massachusetts is now saying that the bird flu is widespread. And this all came out in the news yesterday. And the bird flu is in places that haven't been tested positive for bird flu. And we're just going to start seeing more and more of this. And the second largest egg producer in the United States, which I guess is Rose Acres Farms, they confirmed that one of their farms in Indiana has tested positive for bird flu. So, of course, all the chickens are going to be killed. And we have the USDA predicting that egg prices will soar to like 20% more than they are right now because of the egg shortage, and that for free range and pasture raised chickens, prices are going to increase by 45%. So just like with the plane crash, Trump is being blamed, right? This is all falling on Trump. And so I am really loving Carolyn Levitt, and I think she's doing a great job so far. And I have to play this clip from a press conference that she did a couple days ago because I loved her not so subtle dig at the Biden admin. If I can get the volume.
What specifically is he doing to lower those costs for Americans?
Really glad you brought this up because there is a lot of reporting out there that is putting the onus on this White House for the increased cost of eggs. I would like to point out to each and every one of you that in 2024, when Joe Biden was in the Oval Office or upstairs in the residence sleeping, I'm not so sure, egg prices increased 65% in this country. We also have seen the cost of everything, not just eggs. Bacon, groceries, gasoline have increased because of the inflationary policies of the last administration. As far as the egg shortage, what's also contributing to that is that the Biden administration and the Department of Agriculture directed the mass killing of more than 100 million chickens, which has led to a lack of chicken supply in this country, therefore a lack of egg supply, which is leading to the shortage. So I will leave you with this point. This is an example of why it's so incredibly important that the Senate moves swiftly to confirm all of President Trump's nominees, including his nominee for the United States Department of Agriculture, Brooke Rollins, who is already speaking with Kevin Hassett, who's leading the economic team here at the White House, on how we can address the egg shortage in this country. As for costs, I laid out the plethora of ways that President Trump has addressed saving costs for the American people over the past week. He looks forward to continuing to doing that in the days ahead.
I love her.
I know.
She is on it. It's like, well, I'm glad you asked. Let me tell you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so as you're talking about all this stuff, it made me think about number one, Monsanto that did this with their GMO seeds. But then I just recently heard about the pork industry in the United States and how what they did is there was a politician that, got together with his wealthy friends and they undercut the price of every single competitor on pork to where every competitor started going out of business. Then they went and bought up all those businesses, and now they control the pork industry in the United States. And I bet the same damn thing is happening with the eggs. You're going to have some big corporation that's going to undercut all of the farmers that are left. So they go out of business, and then we'll have one big corporation that's probably tied to politicians that controls the egg industry.
Yeah.
Egg industry, whatever, you know what I mean? The egg supply.
I would not be surprised. Like this, it's just not going away. They're just not going to focus on it being a human pandemic, but it's clearly having an impact on our food supply.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you're staying on top of it because I don't really hear anyone else talking about it very often. So we'll inform everyone and figure out what happens with RFK, Tulsi, and Kash Patel. We should know soon. So we'll update everyone on the next episode. But thanks for tuning in. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you back here on Monday.